YouTube? Tommy from North Georgia RC here, bringing you a video on how to do specific modifications to your TRX6 or your TRX4. It's the same for either or, just this has an extra axle set, extra links, whole bunch of other stuff. So today what we're going to be doing is a part 1 and a part 2 series, so make sure you stay tuned for the drop each week. First thing we're going to be doing today is the SSD portal delete. So here's the part number on it. Get it to focus. This is for the rear axle. The front's pretty much the same thing, except for, you know, it has knuckles and such that turn with the front steering. So me and Ryan both have TRX6s, and we're both having a little competition to see who can build the bigger and badder one. So what I plan on doing with this is running these Proline 2.2 by 588 tires on it on all 6. I've already stretched the rear axle back to accommodate for the clearing of it. But what we're going to do is put portal deletes in all of these. So I'm going to start with doing the rears first, and eventually bring a video out for doing the fronts. So first thing we're going to want to do is you can either use hand tools like we have here, or you can get a drill attachment on Amazon. These vary from 1.27 to 1.5, 2.0, 2.5, and 3.0. With Traxxas, you're pretty much, other than the grub screw, which is a 1.5, you're going to use a 2.0 for everything. So I'm going to load it up in the old snap-on drill here. First thing I'm going to do to start this out is I'm going to take out the middle axle, which is also the pass-through axle shaft. So the chunk here, it has an input and an output that for the drive shafts that come in from the mid-shaft bearing from the chassis down to the axle's pinion. Then there's another pinion that comes out the back to the secondary rear axle back here, which is just the normal regular old TRX4 and TRX6 axle shafts. But since I stretched out the rear, what I ended up doing was a whole bunch of custom stuff to do that. I'll do a breakdown video in the future of how I did it, but here's the original TRX6 axle, and the difference between the two is the upper control arm mount. So if you see, these are really, really long, as where the TRX4 is shorter. So the lengths that I use, long story short, I'm not using the TRX6 axle, I'm using the TRX4 axle because of how I elongated it. Back to the video. We're going to start out by taking out the bottom bolt for the shock here, which is the lower control arm bolt and the shock bolt all in one. So just make sure you put these aside in a safe place, you don't lose them. Second thing I'm going to do is take it out directly on the other side as well. So flip this long thing around. Turn up the drill settings here. There's that. Pop out the lower control arm bolt there. And then we're going to do the main one up top, which is for both upper control arms here. So when we take out the one, the entire axle shafts would come out pretty freely. So once we remove those 3 screws, as long as your axle shafts, one of them is unhooked, you can just take out the upper control arms out of the bracket and slide it out free just like that. Don't worry about the SCX6 torn apart in the background. I got a rebuild kit coming for the transmission. It decided to die at Cherokee Rock Village during Halloween haul and crawl. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to start by taking out the 2 1.5mm grub screws here in the axle. And we're going to switch out to the 1.5 drill attachment. If you don't have a 1.5 drill attachment, just get a regular hand set. I always like to break them free by hand, give it a little twist. And then whenever I get done with the screws, for certain things like this, I like to put them back in it just so I don't lose them. I got this TRX6 used on Marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. So it already had these Trial plus 15mm hub adapters on them. We are not doing those because there's no need. So I got some Trial brass plus 3mm. Here's the part number for that, if anyone's interested in it. Let me focus this thing on it. Get it real close. Anyways, those are like the stock ones pretty much, with just plus 3mm difference. The stock ones in these TRXs are just infamous for cracking if you over tighten the little grub screw, the set screw, whatever you call it. But they're trash. So we're doing away with those completely, and we're gonna put some beefier. These are solid brass from Triel. They're awesome, and they're decently cheap. But 2.0 on the drill. Take out these Triel adapters and just put those to the side because these things are atrocious. We've run them in the past, and they are just not good. I don't like these extreme heavy offset wheel hexes. They're not good. They're horrible. Your servo works harder, everything works harder, it tears stuff apart. It's what I ran on the mud bogging Defender video from like 2 years ago, and they're just horrible. They destroy portal gears and everything. That's another reason why I'm doing this. These portal gears inside of here, I'll show you in just a moment. You have input gears, which come from the actual chunk that through the axle shaft to the input of the portal itself, down to a larger gear in here, which is attached to this guy called the output gear. Go figure. It's just not a good setup at all. I hate it. They break. There's too much wiggle in this. And if you go with solid metal axles and solid portals, the actual inner and outer portal covers on these, then yeah, you can get some better results. But from the factory, they just suck. You can't have too much fun. I like to bash my stuff, and I don't know about you guys, but I like to actually use my crawlers for mud bogging and other stuff like that. So everything gets put under too much stress when me and Ryan go out with our rigs. So here we are. Back to the main video though, the SSD portal deletes. Put those right there. What we're gonna start out next is there's these two bolts right here and these two bolts right here. We're gonna remove those two from the hub with a 2mm Allen. Then, simple as this, little tug and it comes right off, and that's your entire portal setup on these things. So just set that bad boy to the side, and we're gonna do the same for this side. Once you get the axle shaft broken down to this point where it's just the pinion gear in there now, no axle shafts or nothing, they're all here on the table, we're gonna start the delete kit now. SSD sends a very detailed list here on how to do it. So step 1, install the new aluminum parts onto both sides of the axle using the stock flathead screws. So we're gonna take the adapter piece here, which replaces the inner piece. Make sure you line it up where the two holes on the top and the one hole in the bottom slide right over each other. And since this is an aluminum piece going on to plastic, I'm gonna give it a little motivational push just like that. Now, when it comes to your axle shafts, they have two different lengths, two different heights. So make sure you don't put the wrong one in the wrong one, because you, like me, you messed up. So using the same 2mm flathead screws, we are going to install the new portal gear, or the new inner portal piece, into the existing housing here with the drill setting on 1, since we are drilling into plastic. If you want to use a hand tool, you are more than welcome, but I like to be as efficient as possible. So not over tightened, it's perfectly set. That was step number 1. Step number 2, fit bearings onto new axle. New steel axles. So here I went ahead and did that already. I put the smaller gear right on top. It just slides right over it, just like that. And the new one on the back side, just like that. Okay. Insert the axle and bearings into the aluminum cap. So here's the aluminum cap here. We're going to just slide it right through here, grab a hold of it with this guy, just like that. Fit the stock axle shaft into the new axle and install the aluminum cap on both sides. So if you see here, there's a hole on both sides. And if you line it up just right, you can see through it. Well, maybe without the axle head in there. There's a hole there and a hole there. On the axle itself, that new inner piece, there's a hole there and a hole there. You line those up. But first, we got to make sure we put the axle shaft in. And like I said, make sure you use the correct length on each side. So you just slide it right through the new piece, give it a little twist until it slides in. If you're not sure if it's in all the way, give the pinion a twist, and if you see it moving, you did it right. What I like to do is line it up flush with it, just like that. So now I have guidance to work with, so I know it's flat this way, between the holes going this way. So what I'm going to do next is line it up the same way. Flat that way, with the holes going that way. And if you line it up just right, it should just slide right over it, just like that. And a little twist lines the holes up. Now using the new, let's see here, install screws to secure the cap from both sides, looking like Frankenstein over here. Look at this thing. The 2 bolts going in. Just like that. So the 2 little screws that, or there's 4 small screws supplied with this, and they are a specific length so that you don't overscrew into it and cause any rubbing on the new screw up against the axle. Like I said, impact setting 1, just so you don't over tighten anything, especially with all these new parts. If you want to, you can go ahead and add a small dab of blue Loctite. Never add red, because if you ever need to take them apart for any reason, like I'm going to have to do in the next video. Both of those are nice, tight, and secure. And there's one side done. If you watch the outside, twist the pinion here, and it's spinning the axle output. So that one side's done. We're going to fast forward through this next part to make it a little easier for y'all. Small thing around the bearing is all the percent. Sometimes use the things here. Get a little push down and see that all the way up. That's not the way. You want to take accessories. Yeah, they're shipping them. So you don't guarantee that you can see correctly. Okay, so after a quick speed run for the second side, we have now successfully done the SSD portal delete for the TRX4 or TRX6. It's the same kit for both. So, the rear delete kit for this, which comes with all the new parts, the new bearings, everything, it's smooth as butter. It costs $44.99 from A Main Hobbies, Hobbytown, whichever website you get them from. Amazon usually doesn't have them. I prefer amainhobbies.com, link down below in the description. And now the only thing left to do is throw it back in the exact same way. Those 3 screws, the one through the top that holds both the upper control arms, and the ones on the side which go through the outside of the shock here into the lower, into right here, and same on the other side.